Listen carefully. Your life rises or falls to the level of your mind, not your talent, not your luck, not your environment, your mind. The moment you learn to command your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions, your entire world begins to shift. Most people never experience this moment because they live on autopilot. They wake up, react, scroll, worry, chase, repeat. Their mind pulls them in 10 directions at once, and they call that normal. But it's not normal. It's untrained. And an untrained mind doesn't lead you forward, it drags you around. This audiobook begins at the exact moment you decide to stop being dragged, right now. Because nothing changes until the mind changes. This is not motivation. This is awakening. This is the moment you realize your thoughts are shaping your life, whether you are aware of it or not. And if you don't take control, your mind will continue to decide your future without your permission. Your life has been moving in the direction of your dominant thoughts. If you don't like where you are, this is where it begins. Here, now, this moment. Control your mind, and you take the first step toward controlling everything else. Most people are not weak. They are untrained. There is a difference. An untrained mind reacts to everything, every comment, every delay, every emotion, every impulse. It jumps from fear to distraction, from excitement to exhaustion, from hope to doubt, without ever stopping to question itself. A trained mind is different. A trained mind observes before it reacts. It chooses before it moves. It decides what deserves attention and what does not. The untrained mind asks, "How do I feel right now?" The trained mind asks, "What is the right action right now?" One drifts, the other directs. One is ruled, the other commands. This is the gap between people who feel lost and people who feel grounded, between people who are busy and people who are effective, between people who survive and people who lead. The tragedy is that most people never train their mind because no one told them it was possible. They assume their thoughts are facts. They assume their emotions are orders. They assume their impulses are truth. They never stop to question the voice in their head. But that voice is not you. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can either be used or it can be misused. Today, you begin learning how to use it. A wandering mind creates a wandering life. Read that again slowly. When your thoughts drift, your decisions drift. When your focus drifts, your discipline drifts. When your identity drifts, your future drifts. That is why so many people feel lost even when they are busy. They are moving, but they are not directing. They are reacting, not choosing. They are consuming, not creating. They wonder why they can't stay consistent, why they start strong and fade, why their goals feel distant even when they try. It's not because they lack ability. It's because their mind is scattered. Scattered attention produces scattered results, but clarity changes everything. The moment you train your mind to stay with one thought, one decision, one action at a time, your life gains direction. Power is not intensity. Power is focus. Power is the ability to hold your attention steady while the world tries to pull it away. That is mental sovereignty. That is what separates leaders from followers. And it begins the moment you stop letting your mind wander wherever it wants. Here is the truth that will either scare you or free you. You always have a choice. You may not control what happens to you, but you control what you think about it, how you interpret it, and how you respond to it. That is sovereignty. Most people surrender this power without realizing it. They say things like, "That's just how I am," or "I couldn't help it," or "I had no choice." Those are the words of a mind that has never been trained to pause. A trained mind knows this truth. Thoughts are not commands. Emotions are not laws. Impulses are not destiny. You can feel something and still choose differently. You can think something and still refuse to act on it. That is power. And once you experience it, even once, you can never unsee it. This chapter marks the moment you stop being a passenger in your own head and become the commander of it. From this point forward, your mind is no longer the enemy. It is the weapon. And learning to wield it is how you take control of your world. Your thoughts are not commands. Read that slowly, because this is where most people lose control of their lives without ever realizing it. A thought appears, and they obey it instantly. Fear says stop, and they stop. Doubt says you're not ready, and they retreat. Anxiety says something is wrong, and they panic. They never pause to ask a critical question. Is this thought true, useful, or necessary? They assume that because a thought exists, it deserves authority. That assumption is the prison. Thoughts are suggestions, not orders. They rise automatically based on habit, memory, fear, conditioning, and past experience. If you don't learn to separate yourself from them, they will run your life from the shadows. This is why so many people feel exhausted without doing anything difficult. Their mind never rests because it is never questioned. The voice in your head speaks constantly, but it does not speak wisely by default. Wisdom comes from selection. Power comes from discernment. The moment you stop treating every thought like a command, you create space. And in that space, control is born. An untrained mind believes everything it thinks. A trained mind observes before it believes. This is the difference between mental slavery and mental sovereignty. When a negative thought appears, most people fuse with it. They say, "I am not good enough," instead of, "I am noticing a thought that says I'm not good enough." That single shift changes everything. One statement creates identity. The other creates awareness. Awareness breaks the illusion. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of them. Thoughts are events, not definitions. They come and go like weather. Some are useful. Many are noise. But if you never question them, they become your reality by default. A trained mind slows down the process. It watches the thought arise. It labels it: fear, doubt, ego, overthinking, insecurity. Once named, the thought loses its grip. You no longer argue with it. You no longer obey it. You simply see it for what it is. This is how mental strength is built, not by forcing positivity, not by suppressing thoughts, but by refusing to give unearned authority to every voice in your head. Control begins with observation. Here is a truth that will change how you experience your inner world. What you don't name controls you. What you don't examine becomes your master. Most people live inside unnamed thoughts their entire lives. They feel restless but don't know why. They feel stuck but can't explain it. They feel overwhelmed but never slow down long enough to identify the cause. The mind thrives in vagueness. Power thrives in clarity. When a thought appears, your first job is not to react. It is to name it. Say it clearly, even silently. This is fear. This is self-doubt. This is catastrophizing. This is my ego trying to protect itself. The moment you name the thought, you separate from it. You step out of the storm and into the position of command. You don't need to fight the thought. You don't need to replace it immediately. You simply need to see it. Awareness weakens what unconsciousness strengthens. This is the foundation of thought domination. You decide which thoughts get attention, which get energy, and which are ignored. That decision, repeated daily, reshapes your identity from reactive to intentional. You always have a choice, even when it doesn't feel like it, especially when it doesn't feel like it. Thoughts will try to convince you otherwise. They will tell you that you must act now, react now, worry now, decide now. Urgency is the language of an untrained mind. A trained mind pauses. Even 1 second of pause restores power. In that pause, you remember something essential. You are not required to obey every thought that passes through you. You can let it pass. You can choose a different response. You can act from discipline instead of impulse. This is where mental sovereignty becomes real. Not in calm moments, but in pressured ones. Not when things are easy, but when your mind is loud. From this moment forward, your practice is simple but demanding. Notice the thought, name it. Decide whether it serves your direction. If it doesn't, you let it go without negotiation. That is domination. That is control. That is the beginning of a mind that serves you instead of steering you. And once your thoughts are under command, everything else follows. Your emotions are loud. They are persuasive. They feel urgent, real, undeniable. And this is why most people lose control of their lives without ever realizing how it happened. An emotion rises, and they obey it instantly. Anger tells them to react, and they react. Fear tells them to retreat, and they retreat. Insecurity tells them to hide, and they disappear. They mistake emotion for instruction. But emotion is not a command. Emotion is information. It is data, not destiny. The disciplined mind understands this difference. You can feel something and still choose differently. You can experience anger and remain silent. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel doubt and still act with discipline. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It is separation. It is the ability to experience emotion without surrendering authority to it. Most people never learn this. They live their entire lives at the mercy of their emotional state, wondering why consistency escapes them. This chapter ends that confusion. This is where you stop being ruled by feeling and start being guided by clarity. Think about how many decisions in your life were made emotionally. Words you wish you could take back. Messages sent too quickly. Opportunities avoided because fear felt convincing. Relationships damaged because anger felt justified. None of those moments were forced. You chose the action. But because the emotion felt intense, you handed it control. That is the illusion. Emotion does not move your body. Emotion does not open your mouth. Emotion does not press send. You do. A trained mind knows this and takes responsibility. Responsibility is power. When you label the emotion, you weaken it. Say it clearly. This is anger. This is fear. This is disappointment. This is ego. The moment you label it, you step out of it. You stop identifying as the emotion and start observing it. Observation breaks emotional momentum, and momentum is what makes emotion dangerous. When you slow it down, it loses authority. This is not about becoming cold or numb. It is about becoming sovereign. Emotion speaks. Discipline decides. That is the order of power. Here is the rule you must burn into your mind. Feel fully. Act selectively. Most people either suppress emotions until they explode or express them without control. Both paths lead to regret. Emotional mastery lives in the middle. You allow the emotion to exist without allowing it to drive. When fear appears, you don't deny it. You examine it. What is it trying to protect? When anger appears, you don't explode. You pause. What boundary feels threatened? When insecurity appears, you don't hide. You inspect it. What standard are you comparing yourself to? Emotion always carries information. The disciplined mind extracts the lesson without obeying the impulse. This is how leaders stay calm under pressure. This is how high performers make decisions when others panic. This is how composure becomes a weapon. You are not weak for feeling emotion. You are weak only if you surrender to it. And surrender is a habit you are now breaking. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen your emotional muscle. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you reclaim power that was always yours. From this moment forward, your practice is clear. When emotion rises, you do not rush. You pause for 3 seconds. You breathe once. You label what you feel. Then you ask a single question. What action protects my power right now? Not my pride, not my comfort, my power. That question cuts through emotional noise. It brings you back to command. The world does not reward emotional obedience. It rewards emotional control. People trust those who remain steady. They follow those who remain composed. They respect those who do not collapse under pressure. Emotional mastery is not about winning arguments. It is about winning yourself. And once you win that battle, everything else becomes easier. Your reactions slow. Your decisions sharpen. Your confidence stabilizes. This is not theory. This is training. And like all training, it works only if practiced daily. Feel the emotion. Name it. Choose discipline anyway. That is mastery. That is control. And this is how you stop being ruled from the inside and start leading your life with authority. Your reaction is not automatic. It feels automatic, but it isn't. That belief is one of the biggest lies the untrained mind tells itself. Something happens, a comment, a delay, a look, a mistake, and the body surges with energy. Heart rate rises, muscles tighten, thoughts race. And in that moment, most people say, I couldn't help it. But that is not truth. That is surrender. Between stimulus and response, there is always a gap. It may be small, it may be uncomfortable, but it exists. And that gap is where power lives. The difference between a controlled life and a chaotic one is decided inside that gap. Most people never learn to stand there. They react instantly and then live with the consequences. Words they didn't mean, decisions they regret, bridges burned that never needed to burn. Not because they are bad people, but because they never trained the pause. This chapter is about reclaiming that space. Because the moment you learn to pause, even for a second, you stop being controlled by the moment and start controlling it. Look back honestly at your life. How many problems were created not by bad intentions, but by fast reactions? A sharp reply spoken in anger, a message sent without thinking, a decision made under pressure. Reaction is expensive. It costs relationships, it costs reputation, it costs peace, and it always demands payment later. The untrained mind reacts because it seeks immediate relief. Say something to release tension. Do something to escape discomfort. Defend the ego to feel safe. But relief is short. Consequences last. A trained mind understands this. It does not rush to feel better. It chooses to stay powerful. Leaders are not defined by what they feel. They are defined by how they respond. Calm in chaos is not personality. It is discipline, and discipline is learned. When you react without thinking, you give the world control over your behavior. When you pause, you take that control back. This is not about suppressing emotion. This is about refusing to let emotion dictate action. That refusal is strength. Here is the tool that changes everything. The pause, not a long pause, not meditation, not isolation. A simple interruption of instinct. One breath, 1 second. That is all it takes to break the chain. When something triggers you, stop. Do nothing. Don't speak. Don't move. Just stop. Then name what is happening. This is anger. This is embarrassment. This is fear. This is ego trying to defend itself. Naming creates separation. Separation creates clarity. Then ask one question. What response protects my power right now? Not what feels good. Not what feels justified. What protects my power? That question reorders your priorities instantly. You stop acting for the moment and start acting for your future. Every time you practice this, the pause becomes stronger. What once felt impossible becomes natural. Reaction loses speed. Response gains authority. This is how discipline replaces impulse. This is how identity shifts from reactive to intentional. Understand this clearly. If you do not choose your reaction, the world will choose it for you. And the world will always choose chaos. People will test you. Situations will pressure you. Life will provoke you. That will never stop. But what can stop is automatic behavior. Your reaction reveals who is in control. A calm response under pressure signals leadership. A thoughtful reply in conflict signals maturity. A steady presence in uncertainty signals strength. People may forget what you say, but they will remember how you reacted. Your reaction becomes your reputation long before your words do. From this moment forward, reaction is no longer accidental. It is deliberate. You pause, you name, you choose. Every time you do, you reinforce a new identity, an identity that does not flinch, an identity that does not rush, an identity that does not surrender power to impulse. This is how you stop being pushed by life and start steering it. Control your reaction, and you reclaim authority over every situation you face. You cannot build a strong mind while feeding it weakness. This is the truth most people avoid because it exposes their daily habits. Every day you are conditioning your mind, whether you realize it or not. Every choice you make either strengthens your discipline or weakens it. There is no neutral. A weak mind is not born. It is built. Built through repetition, built through comfort, built through small, seemingly harmless habits that slowly erode focus and self-command. Gossip, endless scrolling, excuses, overindulgence, constant stimulation. These are not just behaviors. They are training programs. They train your mind to avoid discomfort, chase dopamine, and escape responsibility. And then people wonder why they feel scattered, anxious, unmotivated, and inconsistent. It's not a mystery. It's conditioning. You cannot expect power from a mind that has been trained to seek ease. Strength requires restraint. Discipline requires boundaries. And this chapter marks the moment you stop feeding the habits that quietly sabotage your potential. Let's be direct. Gossip is mental poison. Not because it's immoral, but because it trains your attention on things that do not build you. Every time you engage in gossip, you reinforce a dangerous message. I have time to focus on others instead of improving myself. That message weakens identity. Scrolling does the same thing. You open your phone for a moment, and suddenly time disappears. But what you really lose is not minutes. You lose sharpness. You lose the ability to sit with silence. You lose control over your attention. And attention is power. Excuses are another form of weakness. They protect your ego while stealing your growth. Every excuse teaches your mind that comfort matters more than progress. Overindulgence follows the same pattern. Food, entertainment, pleasure are not the enemy. Lack of restraint is. When you cannot stop, your cravings are in control. And if cravings run your habits, they will run your future. These habits feel small, but their impact compounds. Weakness is rarely dramatic. It is subtle, repetitive, and familiar. And that is what makes it dangerous. A strong mind is built by refusal. Refusal to gossip. Refusal to scroll endlessly. Refusal to excuse poor behavior. Refusal to numb discomfort with stimulation. This is not about becoming extreme. It is about becoming deliberate. Every time you say no to a weak habit, you say yes to mental strength. Every time you delay gratification, you build discipline. Discipline is not intensity. It is consistency. It is the ability to say, I can, but I choose not to. That sentence builds authority inside your mind. Stillness strengthens focus. Silence strengthens clarity. Boredom strengthens patience. These are muscles most people never train. They avoid silence. They avoid stillness. They avoid discomfort. And avoidance becomes identity. But you are no longer avoiding. You are training. You are removing what weakens you and replacing it with what strengthens you. Reading instead of scrolling. Walking instead of numbing. Planning instead of reacting. Reflection instead of distraction. This is how mental power is built quietly, without applause, without announcement, through daily restraint. From this moment forward, your instruction is simple and non-negotiable. Cut one mental poison today. Just one. Gossip, excessive scrolling, excuses, overindulgence, constant noise. Remove it deliberately, then replace it with one strengthening habit. Sit in silence, read 10 pages, write your thoughts, take a focused walk, plan your day, repeat it tomorrow and the next day. This is how identity changes, not through dramatic declarations, but through disciplined repetition. Your mind becomes what you repeatedly feed it. Feed distraction and you become scattered. Feed discipline and you become sharp. Feed weakness and you become fragile. Feed restraint and you become powerful. This chapter is not about motivation. It is about conditioning, and conditioning always wins. Stop feeding mental weakness. Start feeding control. Because the mind you build today is the mind that will decide your future tomorrow. Your attention is your most powerful resource, and most people give it away without resistance. They wake up distracted, live distracted, and go to sleep exhausted, wondering why nothing meaningful ever moves forward. Focus is not talent. Focus is not personality. Focus is discipline, and discipline is trained. Where your attention goes, your life follows. This is not philosophy. This is mechanics. A scattered mind produces scattered results. A focused mind produces momentum. Yet the modern world is designed to fracture attention. Notifications, messages, tabs, feeds, noise everywhere, all competing for one thing, your mind. If you do not defend it, it will be taken. And once your attention is fragmented, your identity fragments with it. You feel busy but ineffective, stimulated but empty, active but directionless. This chapter is about reclaiming that stolen power. Because when you control your focus, you control the direction of your life. Without focus, discipline collapses. Without focus, Goals dissolve. Without focus, potential remains theoretical. Focus is the bridge between intention and execution, and crossing it is non-negotiable. Look closely at the people who achieve mastery: athletes, leaders, builders, creators. What separates them is not intelligence or luck. It is sustained attention. They stay with one thing longer than everyone else. They repeat when others quit. They train when others seek entertainment. They protect their focus like their future depends on it, because it does. Most people cannot stay with a single task without interruption for 20 minutes. Their mind jumps. Their hands reach for the phone. Their thoughts drift. And every drift weakens mental muscle. Attention fragmentation trains the brain to abandon depth. And without depth, there is no mastery. There is only surface-level effort and constant restart. This is why progress feels slow for so many people. They never stay long enough to compound. Focus is not about forcing yourself harder. It is about refusing distraction. It is about choosing one target and holding your mind there despite discomfort. Discomfort is the price of depth, and depth is the price of excellence. Once you accept this, focus stops feeling restrictive and starts feeling powerful. When you focus deeply on one thing, something rare happens. Your mind synchronizes, noise fades, energy concentrates, time compresses. This is flow. This is where breakthroughs occur. This is where confidence is built quietly, not through hype, but through progress. A focused mind does not multitask. Multitasking is weakness disguised as productivity. A focused mind commits. It chooses one priority and honors it. One task, one direction, one block of time protected from interruption. Even 20 minutes of true focus daily will separate you from the majority of people within months. Focus compounds faster than motivation ever will, and the discipline to return your attention again and again is what builds unbreakable concentration. Your thoughts will wander. That is normal. Power is not in never drifting. Power is in returning. Every return strengthens control. Every redirection builds authority. This is how focus becomes a skill instead of a struggle. You don't wait to feel focused. You train it by staying when your mind wants to escape. From this moment forward, your rules are clear. Choose one priority each day that actually moves your life forward. Everything else becomes secondary. Create focus blocks. No phone, no notifications, no switching tasks. Just one thing. Cut one distraction permanently. Delete it. Block it. Remove it. If it does not serve your direction, it does not deserve access to your attention. Guard your environment. Your environment shapes focus faster than willpower ever will. Clean your space. Simplify your inputs. Reduce noise. When your focus slips, bring it back without frustration. That return is the training. This is not about perfection. This is about discipline. Where your attention goes, your life follows. And from this point forward, your attention belongs to you. Focus is no longer optional. It is your weapon. And once you wield it, momentum becomes inevitable. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. It rises when things are easy and disappears when things become difficult. And yet most people build their entire life around waiting for it. They wait to feel inspired. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel ready. And while they wait, their potential quietly decays. Discipline is different. Discipline does not ask how you feel. Discipline asks what must be done. This is the difference between people who change and people who repeat the same year over and over again. Motivation is an emotion. Discipline is a command. Emotions fluctuate. Commands execute. When you rely on motivation, your progress depends on mood. When you rely on discipline, your progress becomes inevitable. This chapter is where excuses lose their power. Because once you understand discipline, you stop negotiating with weakness. You stop explaining why today is not the right day. You act anyway, especially when you don't feel like it. That is where real strength is built. Look at anyone who has achieved something meaningful. Athletes, soldiers, builders, leaders. None of them succeed because they always feel motivated. They succeed because they train themselves to act without motivation. Military training is not designed to make soldiers comfortable. It is designed to make obedience to discipline automatic under pressure. Athletes don't train when they feel excited. They train when they are tired, bored, sore, and discouraged. That repetition wires identity. Discipline removes debate. When a routine is non-negotiable, the mind stops arguing. The problem with most people is not lack of ability. It is constant decision-making. Should I do this now? Should I rest? Should I wait? Every decision drains willpower. Discipline solves this by removing choice. You decide once, then you execute daily. No discussion, no mood check, no delay. This is how discipline becomes freedom. It frees you from hesitation. It frees you from inconsistency. It frees you from the chaos of emotional decision-making. Structure does not imprison you. It protects you. Here is the rule you must accept if you want control. Do it especially when you don't feel like it. That sentence is the dividing line between average and unstoppable. Anyone can act when energy is high. Anyone can work when excitement is present. Discipline is revealed when resistance appears. When your mind says stop. When comfort whispers escape. When excuses sound logical. That is the moment that matters. Every time you act despite resistance, you strengthen your mental immunity. You teach your mind who is in charge. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is preparation. It prepares you to function when life is hard, when pressure is high, when emotions are unstable. Without discipline, setbacks break you. With discipline, setbacks train you. This is why disciplined people recover faster, adapt quicker, and remain steady when others collapse. They do not rely on feeling strong. They rely on structure. And structure never abandons you when feelings do. From this point forward, discipline becomes practical. You set non-negotiables. 3 actions you complete daily no matter what. Before distraction, before comfort, before excuses. You control your environment, so the disciplined choice becomes the easy choice. You remove temptations. You reduce friction. You make execution simple. You add small daily challenges that build toughness. Cold water, early rising, finishing the hardest task first. These are not extreme. They are intentional. Every act of disciplined obedience compounds. Every completed routine reinforces identity. You stop asking who you want to be and start proving it through action. Discipline does not make life smaller. It makes life sharper, clearer, stronger. From this moment on, motivation is optional. Discipline is law. And when discipline becomes your default, progress stops being a question and starts becoming a guarantee. Your mind is territory. And like any valuable territory, it is either protected or invaded. Most people leave the gates wide open. They let toxic conversations in. They let negative news in. They let distractions, drama, opinions, and chaos roam freely inside their head. Then they wonder why they feel anxious, unfocused, and drained. This is not bad luck. This is poor defense. If you do not guard your mental territory, the world will occupy it for you. And the world does not care about your clarity, your discipline, or your future. It only cares about your attention. Every input you allow either strengthens you or weakens you. There is no neutral exposure. This chapter is about reclaiming ownership of what enters your mind. Because once you control your mental environment, discipline becomes easier, focus becomes sharper, and emotional stability becomes natural. Guarding your mind is not selfish. It is survival. And from this moment forward, you treat your mental space like sacred ground. Look at the people you spend the most time with. Notice how they speak. Notice what they focus on. Complaints, gossip, fear, excuses, or growth, discipline, solutions, accountability. You absorb more than you realize. Energy transfers silently. Attitudes infect quietly. If you surround yourself with people who normalize weakness, you will fight an uphill battle to stay strong. This is not judgment. It is mechanics. The same rule applies to content. What you watch, read, and listen to programs your mind. Fear-driven headlines create anxiety. Endless entertainment trains impatience. Drama teaches reactivity. You don't need to consume everything available. You need to consume what aligns with who you are becoming. High performers are ruthless with inputs. They mute noise. They unsubscribe from chaos. They step away from environments that drain them. Not because they are arrogant, but because they are intentional. They understand this truth. You become what you repeatedly allow into your mind. And discipline begins with permission denied. Your environment shapes behavior faster than willpower ever will. A cluttered space creates mental fog. Constant noise fractures focus. Digital overload drains energy. If you want control, you must design your surroundings to support it. Clean your space. Reduce visual clutter. Silence unnecessary notifications. Remove apps that steal attention. Set boundaries with people who demand constant access. These are not aesthetic choices. These are strategic ones. Every barrier you remove makes discipline easier. Every distraction you eliminate restores power. Guarding your mental territory also means guarding your time. Saying no without guilt. Stepping away without explanation. Choosing solitude over stimulation. This is not isolation. This is alignment. When your environment supports your values, execution becomes natural. When it contradicts them, discipline becomes exhausting. Stop fighting unnecessary battles. Shape the battlefield instead. Control the inputs, and the outputs will follow. From this moment forward, guarding your mind becomes a daily practice. Each morning, decide what you will allow in. Each day, notice what drains you and reduce exposure. Each night, review where you gave attention unnecessarily and correct it tomorrow. This is mental hygiene. Just like physical hygiene, neglect creates sickness. Consistency creates strength. Strong boundaries produce calm decisions. Calm decisions produce momentum. Momentum produces results. When you protect your mental territory, you stop reacting and start responding. You stop leaking energy and start directing it. You become composed under pressure because your inner world is no longer crowded. This is how clarity becomes normal. This is how discipline stabilizes. This is how power accumulates quietly. Guard your mental territory like your life depends on it. Because it does. And once your mind is protected, nothing outside of you can easily shake what you are building. You live inside a story, whether you realize it or not. Every thought you think, every decision you hesitate on, every action you take is filtered through a narrative you repeat to yourself. And here is the truth most people never confront. That story is either a cage or a crown. It either limits you or leads you. Most people live trapped in stories they did not consciously choose. Stories built from fear, past failure, criticism, conditioning, and habit. I'm not that kind of person. I always mess things up. People like me don't get ahead. These are not facts. They are scripts. And scripts, when repeated, become identity. Your mind will always act in alignment with the story it believes. That is why effort alone is not enough. If your internal narrative says you are weak, inconsistent, or unlucky, your behavior will quietly confirm it. This chapter is where that pattern breaks. Because once you realize you are the author, not the character, everything changes. You stop living inside the story and start rewriting it with intention. Negative stories destroy lives quietly. They don't shout, they whisper. They shrink your choices without you noticing. If you believe you are unlucky, you stop taking risks. If you believe you are not smart enough, you avoid challenges. If you believe you always fail, you hesitate before starting. The story narrows your world. It defines what feels possible and what feels forbidden. And over time, your behavior obeys the narrative without question. This is how people stay stuck for years while telling themselves they are trying. They are trying against their own story. A trained mind does not argue with reality, but it also does not obey false identity. It interrogates the narrative. Where did this belief come from? Who taught it to me? Is it proven or is it repeated? Awareness exposes fiction. And once exposed, the story loses authority. You are not required to live inside a narrative that weakens you. You have a choice, and choosing to rewrite it is the beginning of self-command. Rewriting your story is not positive thinking. It is disciplined thinking. It begins with identification. You name the limiting narrative when it appears. This is the story that says, "I'm not capable." You do not debate it emotionally. You label it as outdated programming. Then you interrupt it deliberately. You replace it with a command, not a wish. I take responsibility. I act despite fear. I learn and adapt. Commands shape behavior. Wishes do not. This is not about pretending challenges don't exist. It is about refusing to let fear define you. Your new story must be precise, grounded, and repeatable, not fantasy. Identity. When repeated daily, it rewires perception. Perception rewires action. Action rewires results. This is how internal narrative becomes external reality. Every time you act in alignment with the new story, it gains credibility. Eventually, it stops feeling forced and starts feeling true. That is when the crown replaces the cage. From this moment forward, your practice is clear. When the old story appears, you do not indulge it. You interrupt it. You replace it. You act according to the new narrative even if confidence is absent, especially if confidence is absent. Confidence follows behavior, not the other way around. Each day, reinforce your chosen story with action. Speak less about who you want to be and demonstrate it quietly. Write your commands, repeat them, live them. This is discipline of identity. And identity discipline is the deepest form of control. Because once your story aligns with strength, your decisions stop conflicting internally. Clarity increases, resistance decreases, momentum builds. Your story is no longer something that happens to you. It becomes something you wield. And when you wear your narrative like a crown instead of a cage, the world responds differently. Not because you demanded it, but because you changed who you are from the inside out. Your life is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in the smallest ones. The choices no one sees, the decisions you barely notice, the actions you take when there is no pressure, no applause, and no urgency. Every tiny decision compounds or corrodes your future. Most people wait for a breakthrough moment, a surge of motivation, a perfect opportunity. But transformation does not arrive with noise. It arrives quietly, through repetition. Micro-decisions are the true architects of destiny. The choice to get out of bed instead of hitting snooze. The choice to focus instead of scroll. The choice to pause instead of react. These moments seem insignificant, but they are not. They are votes. Votes for discipline or distraction. Votes for strength or weakness. Votes for the identity you are becoming. You are casting these votes all day long, whether you are aware of it or not. This chapter is about bringing those invisible moments into conscious control. Because once you master micro-decisions, momentum becomes automatic. Most people lose their day in the first 10 minutes. They wake up reactive. Phone first, noise first, chaos first, and the tone is set. One unconscious micro-decision cascades into a day of drift. But a disciplined person treats the morning like a mental frontier. The first choice is intentional. Stand up, breathe, stretch, drink water, make the bed. These are not productivity hacks. They are identity anchors. They signal command. When you win the first micro-decision, the next one becomes easier. This is how discipline builds momentum. Not through force, but through sequence. Micro-resolutions work because they are too small to resist. Read one page, write one sentence, do 5 push-ups, meditate for 1 minute. These actions cannot intimidate you, but they train follow-through, and follow-through builds self-trust. Self-trust builds confidence. Confidence builds action. This is how the smallest choices quietly reshape who you believe yourself to be. Habits are not built in the action. They are built in the moment before the action. The second where you choose. That is where power lives. That micro moment determines whether you repeat the past or redirect the future. If boredom triggers distraction, change the trigger. If stress triggers escape, change the response. You are not trapped in patterns. You trained them, and what is trained can be retrained. Habit stacking accelerates this process. Attach a new behavior to an old one. After you drink water, you journal for 2 minutes. After you sit at your desk, you write your top 3 priorities. After dinner, you walk for 5 minutes. These habits are invisible to the world, but they compound internally. Elimination matters just as much as creation. One habit removed can unlock more power than 5 added. You know what drains you. Stop negotiating with it. Remove the trigger. Remove the access. Remove the excuse. This is not self-punishment. This is self-command. From this moment forward, your discipline becomes microscopic. You stop chasing massive change and start enforcing tiny standards. Every night, you audit your day honestly. What did I commit to? What did I avoid? What will I upgrade tomorrow? No emotion, no explanation, just truth. This is how identity is refined. Greatness is not loud. Mastery is not dramatic. Strength is built in micro decisions repeated daily. Your future is not shaped by milestones. It is shaped by moments, and moments are always small. Choose them wisely. Choose them consistently. Choose them deliberately, because when enough disciplined micro decisions stack together, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop compromising with distraction. You become disciplined by default. And that is when momentum stops being fragile and starts becoming unstoppable. Growth has a price, and the price is discomfort, not chaos, not destruction. Discomfort. The tension you feel when your old patterns begin to break and your new standards demand more from you. Most people interpret this sensation as danger. They pull back. They retreat. They tell themselves something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. Something is changing. Pain is not evidence of failure. Pain is evidence of evolution. Muscles grow through strain. Skill grows through challenge. Confidence grows through exposure. And discipline grows through resistance. Your mind is no different. If you want a stronger identity, a sharper focus, and a more controlled life, you must accept this truth without negotiation. Comfort preserves who you are. Discomfort transforms who you become. This chapter exists to rewire how you interpret struggle, because the moment you stop fearing discomfort, it loses its power to control you. And when discomfort stops controlling you, growth becomes inevitable. Your brain is designed to protect you, not to evolve you. It cannot tell the difference between real danger and unfamiliar territory. So when you step toward growth, it sounds the alarm. It creates doubt. It manufactures excuses. It whispers retreat. This is not intuition. This is resistance, the old self fighting to survive. And dying identities do not go quietly. They fight with comfort, familiarity, and rational-sounding delays. This is why growth feels heavy. Not because it is wrong, but because it is new. The disciplined mind learns to recognize this signal. When resistance appears, it does not pause. It advances. When discomfort rises, it does not escape. It leans in. This is not recklessness. This is clarity. You learn to ask a better question. Is this pain harming me, or is it training me? Most of the time, it is training you. And once you understand that, discomfort becomes a compass instead of a threat. It shows you exactly where growth is waiting. Pain is a teacher, but only if you listen without ego. Every struggle contains information. Every setback exposes a weakness, a blind spot, or a missing system. The undisciplined mind avoids this feedback. It distracts itself. It numbs. It blames. The disciplined mind studies it. What failed? Why did it fail? What must change? This is how strength is built deliberately. You do not need to suffer endlessly. You need to learn precisely. Discomfort demands adjustment, not retreat. It asks for refinement, not surrender. When pressure arrives, you take one more step. Just one. That step separates builders from quitters. Because growth does not require heroic leaps. It requires controlled continuation. Pain becomes fuel the moment you stop asking it to disappear and start asking it to teach. This is how pressure sharpens instead of breaks you. This is how adversity becomes advantage. And this is how you train the mind to move forward regardless of internal resistance. From this moment forward, your rule is simple. Do not avoid discomfort. Use it. When something feels hard, stay present. When resistance appears, act anyway. When fear rises, prepare instead of retreating. Growth never comes without pain, but pain always comes with growth. The discomfort you face today becomes the strength you carry tomorrow. The discipline you enforce now becomes the freedom you earn later. Avoiding pain does not make life easier. It makes it smaller. Embracing discomfort expands capacity. It expands confidence. It expands control. This is not about suffering. This is about transformation. You are not breaking yourself. You are building yourself. And every time you choose growth over comfort, you reinforce a new identity. An identity that does not collapse under pressure. An identity that advances through challenge. An identity that understands the price and pays it willingly. This is how the next level is reached. Through discomfort, embraced deliberately, used intelligently, and mastered consistently. Everything you have learned now converges into one truth. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Your thoughts shape your emotions. Your emotions shape your reactions. Your reactions shape your habits. And your habits shape your destiny. Nothing exists in isolation. Your inner world is a system. When one part is weak, the system leaks power. When all parts are trained, the system becomes unstoppable. Most people try to change outcomes without changing the source. They chase results while ignoring the command center. That is why effort feels heavy and progress feels fragile. Mastery begins when you stop fixing symptoms and start governing the system. This chapter is not about learning something new. It is about integration. It is about command. You no longer react blindly. You no longer surrender attention. You no longer let emotion dictate action. You choose deliberately. You act intentionally. You live consciously. This is the moment the inner world stops being chaotic and starts becoming ordered. And once order exists inside, the outer world follows without resistance. Mastery is not intensity. It is consistency. It is the ability to remain sovereign across changing conditions. Pressure will come. Distraction will return. Emotions will rise. Doubt will whisper. That does not mean you failed. That means you are human. Control is not the absence of challenge. Control is response under challenge. You name thoughts instead of believing them. You feel emotions without obeying them. You pause before reacting. You protect your focus. You enforce discipline. You guard your environment. You rewrite your story. You commit to micro decisions. You embrace discomfort. These are not isolated skills. They are interconnected systems. When one strengthens, the others stabilize. This is why mastery feels calm instead of frantic. You stop forcing progress and start sustaining it. You no longer chase confidence. Confidence emerges from alignment. Alignment between thought, action, and identity. This is the quiet power most people never access because they never train long enough to feel it settle. From this moment forward, your life is no longer accidental. You do not drift. You direct. You do not react. You respond. You do not wait for motivation. You rely on discipline. You do not seek permission. You operate from authority. Authority over your attention. Authority over your emotions. Authority over your reactions. Authority over your habits. This is mental sovereignty. And sovereignty changes how the world interacts with you. Calm becomes presence. Presence becomes respect. Respect becomes influence. Influence becomes impact. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. People feel control before they see results. They trust those who trust themselves. They follow those who lead themselves. And leadership always begins inward. When you master the inner world, chaos outside loses leverage. Noise loses grip. Pressure loses dominance. You remain steady while others fluctuate. That steadiness becomes your signature. That composure becomes your edge. That discipline becomes your identity. This is your final command. Take full responsibility for your inner world. No excuses, no delays, no negotiation. Command your thoughts, govern your emotions, choose your reactions, protect your focus, enforce discipline, rewrite your narrative, design your environment, act with intention. Do this daily, not dramatically, but consistently. Mastery is not loud. It is precise. It is repeatable. It is earned quietly through obedience to your own standards. From this point forward, every decision is a declaration of who you are becoming. Choose power. Choose clarity. Choose control. Because when the inner world is mastered, the outer world obeys. Not by force, by alignment. And alignment, once achieved, becomes unstoppable. Power means nothing if it ends with you. Control means little if it leaves no mark. This is the chapter most people never reach because it requires maturity, not motivation. Legacy is not about fame. It is not about applause. It is not about recognition. Legacy is about impact that remains when you are not present. And that impact is built quietly through how you live, how you decide, and how you treat responsibility. Every disciplined choice you make today echoes into tomorrow. Every standard you hold becomes a signal to the world. You are always teaching, even when you are silent. Teaching others how to act, what to tolerate, and what matters. This chapter is about understanding that your inner mastery is not only for your benefit, it shapes the people around you. It raises or lowers the standard of every environment you enter. And once you realize that, discipline stops feeling personal and starts feeling purposeful. You are no longer just controlling your life. You are influencing the direction of others without speaking a word. Most people think legacy is built at the end of life. That is wrong. Legacy is built daily, in how you handle pressure, in how you respond to setbacks, in how you stay disciplined when no one is watching. People don't remember what you say you value. They remember what you consistently live. Children learn discipline by observing it. Teams learn standards by watching them enforced. Families learn stability by experiencing emotional control. Friends learn strength by witnessing composure. You do not need to announce leadership. Leadership reveals itself through behavior. And behavior is shaped by inner mastery. This is why mastery must be sustained, not temporary. One strong season does not create legacy. Years of consistent standards do. This is where many fall short. They improve briefly, then relax. They grow, then drift. But legacy requires continuity. It requires showing up the same way on good days and hard days. That consistency is what earns trust. And trust is the currency of influence. From this moment forward, you must see yourself as an example, whether you want to or not. Someone is watching how you handle discomfort. Someone is learning from how you respond to stress. Someone is forming beliefs based on your actions. That does not mean you must be perfect. It means you must be accountable. When you fail, you correct. When you slip, you realign. When you fall short, you adjust. That humility strengthens legacy more than flawless performance ever could. Legacy is not about pretending strength. It is about demonstrating recovery, showing that discipline is not about never failing, but about refusing to stay down. This is how resilience spreads. This is how standards propagate. This is how control becomes contagious. People feel safe around those who are stable. They grow around those who are disciplined. They rise around those who live intentionally. And that influence begins with the choices you make when no one is asking you to. This is your final responsibility. Not just to master your inner world, but to honor it through consistency. To live in a way that strengthens others simply by proximity. To maintain standards even when it would be easier to relax them. To act with integrity when shortcuts are available. To remain composed when chaos invites reaction. This is how legacy is built, not through words, through presence, through discipline, through daily alignment. One day, your actions will speak for you when you are not in the room. They will speak through the habits you modeled, the boundaries you enforced, and the standards you refused to lower. That is legacy. Quiet, enduring, unmistakable. And it begins now, with the same choice you have made throughout this journey. To live deliberately, to lead yourself fully, and to leave behind more strength than you inherited. You have reached the end of this journey, but understand this clearly. The work does not end here. What ends here is confusion. What ends here is unconscious living. What ends here is the habit of letting your mind run your life without permission. From this moment forward, you know the truth. Your thoughts are tools. Your emotions are signals. Your reactions are choices. Your habits are votes. And your life is the result of what you repeat. Nothing about your future is random anymore. You are no longer waiting for motivation, validation, or perfect conditions. You are operating from awareness, discipline, and intent. That is power, and power is quiet. It does not beg. It does not rush. It does not explain itself. It moves deliberately. You now understand that control is not domination over others, but sovereignty over yourself. The world may remain chaotic, unpredictable, demanding, but you no longer need it to be calm for you to be steady. You carry that steadiness inside. And once that inner order is established, nothing external can easily disrupt what you are building. This is your final reminder. Every day, life will test what you have learned. It will tempt you to react instead of pause, to scroll instead of focus, to escape instead of endure, to explain instead of execute. Those moments are the real curriculum. That is where mastery is proven. Not in listening, but in choosing, again and again, quietly, relentlessly. You will not always feel strong. You will not always feel certain. That is irrelevant now. You do not act based on feeling. You act based on command. When doubt appears, you observe it. When emotion rises, you label it. When pressure hits, you slow down. When discipline is required, you execute without negotiation. This is how identity is forged. This is how respect is earned. This is how momentum compounds. And this is how a controlled mind creates a controlled life. Remember this when the noise returns. Remember this when comfort whispers. Remember this when the old self tries to pull you back. You are no longer unconscious. You are no longer accidental. You are deliberate. You are disciplined. You are in command. Control your mind. And you control your world.